Hi there! As a certified nutrition chef, I cook for a living. So I am always having fresh produce in my house. It's just part of my shopping habit. With that 9 years of experience with produce, I have found tips and tricks that will help me prolong the life of fruits and vegetables. So I'm not throwing away and wasting produce. So I'm going to show you today what works for me. Now, if you have systems and methods that work for you, keep doing it. Keep doing it. This is just supposed to be helpful if you need some tips or you find yourself throwing away fresh produce more than you're eating it. Also, my way is not the do or die way. There are lots of different methods out there. This is just what works for me. So I hope that you get a little tip in here that you can use in your own kitchen. Let's get started. I want to start with the fruits and vegetables that I do not put in my refrigerator. Number one, I want to save as much space in my fridge for those foods that require it as I can. Number two, I want to store them properly, and whatever's going to make them last the longest, that's what I want to do. So we're going to start with potatoes. I store them by themselves, all different mixture potatoes in a container by themselves in a cool, dark place. We don't want them sprouting or anything like that. So I do make sure that I keep them in the pantry by themselves in their own container. Same with garlic. I do the exact same thing with garlic. I like to put it in its own container. It has a pungent smell, and I like to put it in a cool, dark place because they can also sprout, and I don't want them to. So cool, dark place in the pantry is where I store my garlic. By the way, garlic is so very good for you. Put it in every recipe that you possibly can. It is loaded with antioxidants. It's anti-inflammatory. It's really good for the cardiovascular system. Garlic, I love. Onions, I store yellow, white, and red and shallots by themselves in a container, also in my pantry. Cool, dark place. They'll last longer, and they don't like to be with other fruits and vegetables because they put off this gas that will make other fruits and vegetables go bad quicker. Bananas. I store my bananas on the counter in my kitchen. You can either get a banana hook or just lay them gently on the counter, but they don't like the refrigerator. And when they start to go bad, if you haven't used them, just take the peel off, break them in half, put them in a gallon Ziploc bag or a freezer-safe container, and put them in the freezer for smoothies. So you never get to waste a banana. Last week, I had 4 or 5 that I didn't eat one. I don't know what happened, but we didn't use the bananas, so I had to put all 5 of them in the freezer, and it worked out great. So you don't have to waste bananas, but they also don't need to go in the fridge. Tomatoes, most people know this, but tomatoes do last longer if you set them out on the counter. So I just keep them on the vine and I just put them on the counter next to all of my other things. I try not to let things touch, so I'm not going to let my tomatoes and my bananas hang out touching, but they're in the same area in my kitchen, which is just fine. You can get a little basket or just gently lay them on the counter. Now, this one's controversial. Everybody stores them differently, but I like to store my citrus, lemons, and limes on the counter. I find them to last weeks at a time. I like to pre-squeeze my lemons and limes for lemon and lime juice for my recipes for quick meal prep. And so I buy these like 8 to 10 at a time, and I will just set them in a basket on my kitchen counter, and they'll last for weeks. So some people store them in the crisper drawer. I do not. I store them on the counter. You do want to wash these. They have a very thick, waxy substance on them, and you want to make sure you thoroughly wash, especially if you're going to be using lemon or lime zest in your recipes. Make sure you wash your citrus. The last one I want to talk about that I keep on the counter are avocados. Now, there's a caveat to this. Avocados, if they are not ripe, should be on the counter. If they are ripe, put them in the fridge and it will slow down the ripening process. So if they start getting soft, put them in the fridge and they'll last you a few more extra days. But yeah, I store unripe avocados on the counter. Okay, there is my counter for fruits and vegetables. I'm sure I left some out, but those are the core ones that I buy every week. And now we're gonna move on to all the produce in the fridge. All right, let's talk about those fruits and vegetables that we store in the fridge. I am not going to touch them all, clearly. There are hundreds of fruits and vegetables, but this will give you an idea, and hopefully you'll see the family that this vegetable's in and kind of think of it that way going forward when you start storing the produce that I don't mention today. I store 3 different things in mason jars or, plastic containers with water in them. One of them is asparagus. I wash my asparagus and then I barely cut the ends off, just barely, and then I place them in a little bit of water in an upright container. Think of it like a flower vase. So this is the flower vase method, and I do it with asparagus. And then I also do it with herbs. When you get home from the grocery store, give them a wash, barely snip the bottoms off, and then place them vertical in a little bit of water. You may have to pull some of the leaves off the bottom so they don't get soggy, because you want to try to just get the stems in the water. And now with the asparagus, you don't have to do this, but with herbs, you want to put a plastic bag over the top of it, and it will keep those leaves crispy. I don't use a bunch of plastic bags at the grocery store. I don't bag my bananas. I don't bag my, citrus and all of that. Just a sidebar, the only thing that I bag is something that's gonna fall apart, like cilantro or parsley, and I reuse the bag to cover it in the fridge when it's sitting upright on the top shelf. So be mindful of how much plastic you're using. You don't need plastic for your asparagus. You don't need plastic for your berries. You don't need plastic for a bell pepper. You're gonna come home and thoroughly wash them anyway. Save the plastic. The only time I use plastic is for stuff like this. I also use plastic for broccoli because it seems to shed. You can buy those. You can take your own bags if you want, but for the most part, I just thought I would tell you that I don't use plastic very often, but this is something that I do reuse my plastic for. Now, you also want to do this with, I don't have them today, but you do want to do this with green onion. Just stick your little white parts in the water and then cover it with a plastic bag, and it will keep the green part crispy. Moving on to berries. What I do is I thoroughly wash my berries, and then I place them in an airtight container with a paper towel to absorb any moisture that is still on them. Berries will last longer if you close them up. I do this with strawberries, raspberries, blueberries. I don't buy blackberries very often. Next up is I do the same thing for celery that I do for carrots. I wash it, then I cut them up and I submerge them in water in an airtight container and store them together. They will last you for 2 weeks if you do it this way, but you need to make sure that you change the water about every 4 to 5 days. So same with your herbs that you're putting in your vase method, you want to make sure that you change that water every 4 to 5 days as well. Okay, mushrooms are tricky. I'm going to give you 2 tips for mushrooms. I don't like to airtight them because they are a fungus. And I feel like when they're in an airtight container, they're getting too much moisture and they go bad quicker. I honestly like to keep them in the container that they came in. I do not wash them. Then when it's time to use them, I take a damp paper towel and I just wipe the dirt off of the mushrooms. That's why it's important to get organic mushrooms. That is how I store my mushrooms. You may have a different way. I've tried different methods and I feel like this works the best. Okay, I store my roots, ginger and turmeric in airtight containers, but here's a tip. A lot of people don't realize you really need to wash your ginger and turmeric even if you're peeling it. They spray something on it when they pull it out of the ground to keep it from sprouting at the grocery store. And I don't want any of that stuff in my body. So make sure what I do when I get home, I take the turmeric and I take the ginger and I just thoroughly wash them with water and baking soda. I don't scrub them. I put them in a bowl with water and baking soda and just let them soak. And you would be shocked at how dirty that water is. And I do the same thing for turmeric. If you are not buying fresh turmeric and you have access to it, do it. It's really good for you. I put it in my smoothies. I make ginger shots. I make soups with it. It's just super anti-inflammatory. So I encourage you, if your grocery store has turmeric, start incorporating it into your recipes just like you do ginger. I hope this was helpful. Again, you may have methods that work great for you. I just want to help anyone prolong the life of their fruits and vegetables as long as possible. If you have some tips and you want to put them in the comments, feel free. And if you want to learn more about me and my services and how you can introduce anti-inflammatory foods into your world, you can go to shellycanhelp.com. Follow me on all social media at Shelly Can Help. And if you want to make some anti-inflammatory recipes, grab my cookbook. It's on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com, and it's called What's on Your Fork, and the link is also below. Thanks for watching. I'll be back here with more tips and tricks on how to save you time and money and how to incorporate anti-inflammatory foods into your own kitchen. I gotta go, but I have one question before I do. What is on your fork? Bye for now.